You've probably seen this map too. It pops up on Reddit every few months, usually on r/creepy or r/map porn. It shows two images. One is a map of missing persons, the other is a map of America's subterranean cave systems. The overlap is practically identical. The caverns match the disappearances almost one to one. Most people look at it, go, huh, creepy, and then scroll past. I used to do that too. But one time I zoomed in. See, I live in a rural stretch of Kentucky deep in the foothills. I noticed a dense cluster of red dots right in my county, sitting directly on top of a minor cavern system called the Blackwood Sinkholes. It wasn't really a tourist trap like Mammoth Cave. It was a jagged scar in the woods that even the locals didn't bother with. I showed this to my girlfriend, Jess. Now, calling Jess an outdoorsy person would be putting it lightly. She's the kind of girl who owns 3 different types of hiking boots. She thinks a weekend without dirt under her fingernails is wasted. Me, I'm the opposite. I stay up until 3 a.m. reading about unsolved murders and just generally being a vampire. It's a match, see? I pointed at them. Nobody goes missing here because they get lost. They fall in. Or, I waggled my eyebrows. Something pulls them in. Jess rolled her eyes but grinned. You want to go ghost hunting? I want to go debunking, I corrected. We hike out, set up camp near the sinkholes, cook some actual food, and drink some bourbon, see if the Mothman shows up. It was supposed to be fun, a mix of her love for nature and my morbid curiosity. We packed to the Jeep on Friday, tents, sleeping bags, a heavy cooler filled with marinated short ribs and ice for the whiskey. The hike to the Blackwood Sinks was only about 3 miles from the nearest logging road, but the terrain was brutal. The trees grew thick and wrong here. The roots were twisting over the limestone ground like arthritic fingers. By the time we found the main entrance, I was ready to drop dead. The cave mouth was a horizontal slash in limestone cliff face, about 10 feet high, 30 feet wide. It looked like a mouth held open in a silent scream. A steady, cold breeze flowed out of it, smelling of wet rock and old copper. Creepy, Jess noted, dropping her pack. I can dig it. I loved this girl. We set up camp about 50 yards out from the entrance, just far enough to avoid that draft, but close enough to stare into the darkness. I got a fire going while Jess prepped the grill grate over the coals. We were doing this right. Slow-cooked sticky ribs slathered in a spicy bourbon sauce. Heat from the gentle coals licked at the meat, and the smell was intoxicating. Anybody who loves barbecue knows what I'm talking about. Smoke, fat, sugar, char. Jess was walking back from the tent with the drinks when a downdraft caught the smoke, pulling the plume low across the ground and sucking it into the mouth of the cave. Feeding the beast, Jess joked while handing me a solo cup, half filled with Knob Creek. Well, I hope they like ribs, I laughed. We ate as the sunset turned to twilight, and then drank as twilight gave way to pitch black. Jess put her hand on my shoulder. I thought I was gonna get lucky, but then she told me to shush. And that's when I heard the silence. See, all day there had been this symphony of crickets, cicadas, rustling leaves, all the sounds of a forest. But now the silence was thick, heavy, and oppressive. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. And then the cave moaned. Now, at first you could probably mistake this for the wind. It was too low and long of a groan to come from any human lung. And then it got louder and closer. Jess whispered way down low, "Did you hear that?" And it took me everything I had not to start shaking. She shone her flashlight toward the cliff. The beam cut through the darkness, but the cave mouth swallowed the light. "It's probably a coyote or a bear. We should pack the food up tight," I murmured back, more to myself than to her. That didn't sound like a bear. That sounded congested. We started scrambling to clean up. I was tossing the bones into a trash bag when the sound changed. It wasn't moaning now. It was a retching noise, a wet, hacking cough that echoed from deep within the rock. And then a voice, or something trying to be a voice. "Come." Well, maybe it wasn't English. Maybe my mind was trying to find meaning where there wasn't any. What do they call that? Pareidolia? Startled, Jess dropped the cooler lid. "What the hell was that?" I grabbed the hatchet that I'd used for firewood. "I don't know. We're leaving. Now." "The tent, leave it." The smell hit us before we saw them. It wasn't the lingering sweet smoke of our barbecue anymore. This was a wave of rot, rancid meat, ammonia, something muskier like a wet dog that's been dead for days. And from the darkness of the cave, they came. They weren't human. They were wrong. Elongated. That's the only word for it. They looked like people who had been stretched on a rack. Pale skin pulled tight over bones that had too many joints. Their eyes were milky white, useless, blind. Long, rot-stained teeth chipped and broken and jagged stuck out from low-hanging jaws that were too wide, too loose. And there were 3 of them. 2 crawled on the ground, and the third one limped in a jerky motion, all insect-like. They went straight for the grill. One of them grabbed the scorching hot grate with a bare, clawed hand. It didn't even flinch as its skin sizzled. It brought the metal to its face and groaned, licking the grease with a tongue that was too long and black. "Don't move," I whispered, terrified that the sound of my heartbeat would give us away. The creature let out a chittering sound, dropping the grate. It turned its head. It wasn't looking at us. It was blind, I could tell, but it was looking for us. It tilted its head, sniffing the air like a hungry dog. It was scenting for us. And then it arched its back and wailed. It was a nails-on-a-chalkboard, teeth-grinding, bone-chilling screech that shot down my ears and prickled at something in my gut. It opened its mouth too wide, and I saw my death. "Meat," it rasped. I threw the bag of trash at them. It was just instinct. The bag hit the screecher in the chest, spilling rib bones and paper towels. And the distraction worked for a second. The 3 of them fell on the ribs and garbage in a frenzy, and I could hear them snapping the bones with audible crunches. "Run!" I said. We sprinted through the dark woods, tripping over roots, slamming into saplings, and we tore our clothes on briars. Behind us, the snapping of bones stopped, replaced by a high-pitched, ululating shriek that sounded like something between a coyote and a sobbing child. I could hear them crashing through the brush behind us. They were fast, so incredibly fast. We burst onto the logging road just as I threw the keys to Jess. We dove into the Jeep. She slammed on the locks just as something heavy slammed into the rear window. The glass spiderwebbed, but it held. I looked back as Jess peeled out, dirt and gravel spraying everywhere. In the red glow of the taillights, I saw them. The tree line was filled with figures. Some were standing in the middle of the road, dead still, just watching. There were so many. We drove in silence until we hit the highway. We didn't report any of this. I mean, who would believe us? We told our friends we got spooked by a cougar, but I went back to that map today. I looked at the cluster of red dots in my county, and I looked at the timeline. Most of the disappearances happen in the summer. Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. Holidays. Holidays where people go outside, where people light fires. Holidays where people cook meat. I thought the maps overlapped because people fell into holes. It is not that. I thought the sinks were just holes in the ground. They aren't. They're ventilation shafts. And when we play and laugh, and when we cook, and when we barbecue, we're ringing the dinner bell.